Hi everyone, in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to change or how to specify where stitches are attached in your crochet project using the CrochetPARADE language here on this website. Why would you want to do that? Well, usually crocheting is a sequential process. You attach stitch after stitch after stitch. That's true when you're working simple stitches in continuous rounds or if you're doing rows. But the second you use more complicated stitches or you decide to do freeform crochet or Irish crochet, then you cannot rely on sequential stitching anymore. So you need to be able to explicitly say where stitches go in your project. Now in the real world you might use crochet markers or detailed descriptions of which stitch you need to work the next stitch. The way this is done in CrochetPARADE is with labels, which are sort of the virtual equivalent of crochet markers. So let's look at some of them. So here is a label here. It's a label is specified after a dot. So these 7 chains are labeled with the chain space with all of these modifiers here following it. And these stitches here will attach. So here is this reserved symbol are attached into the chain space that was defined right here, corresponding to those 7 stitches. So this is what we'll be talking about in this tutorial. So let's start from scratch, and we're going to start with 10 chains, and we're going to turn the project. So here are the chains, 10 chains right here. I just want to make sure my sound is on. Yep. So the relevant part of the tutorial I will be going through is specifying attachment points right here. And we're going to start first with direct attachments. So let's say I want to skip a chain, then do a chain, and then do 3 single crochets. Let's see what that looks like. So here it is. You can let me increase the width of the yarn. You can see the 10 chains here, the beginning 10 chains. Then I chained 1. This is the next row right here. And then the next 3 single crochets will skip the last chain, this one of the foundation row, and you're going to work the 3 single crochets. Now let's say you want to work the next stitch into the stitch right here. You can say skip 1, oops, skip, and then do single crochet. And here it is. We skip the stitch here and we work the single crochet right there. Another way of specifying the same thing is by saying, well, I want a single crochet at the following coordinates in my project. So this stitch has the following coordinates. This is the stitch in the 0th row. Remember, here in CrochetPARADE we count from 0, similar to most coding languages or many coding languages. So this is this green stitch here, which I'm going to be skipping this one, in which I want to work my single crochet, has coordinates 0, 4, which correspond to the 0th row, 4th stitch, counting from 0. So you can just copy that here, 0, 4, and there it is. The single crochet was attached exactly that location, same as before. If I want to attach it to the next one, this one has coordinates 0, 3. Remember, we turned the project, so actually if you want to skip 1, you need to decrease the index here. And you can see we skipped 2 actually and attached to the 3rd stitch counting from 0 of the 0th row. So again, direct attachments are specified like this. Now if you want to attach to the beginning chain here, let's say, actually let me do the following. I'm going to chain 2 so that we have some wiggle room, and what I'm going to do next is I want a single crochet, or rather slip stitch, why not, at the first row 0 stitch. Now where would that go? The first row, this is the first row here. The 0 stitch, skip is not a stitch, the 0 stitch is this chain, so I'm assuming, if everything goes well, according to plan, the next stitch will be a slip stitch that will attach to this chain right here. Let's see. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. This chain was looped around, and this is the slip stitch. Here it is, that attached to the 0th stitch of that row, which is this one right here. This is the chain, the starting chain. Okay, if you guys want to see exactly how the progression works, Control A, you can hide stitches, and with A you can show stitches sequentially. So here are the 3 chains. Here are the 3 single crochets. Here are the 2 chains, and the last single slip stitch is gonna be here, going back to the beginning. Okay. Another way of specifying that you need to work in this in the 0th stitch of this same row is by putting the % symbol. % symbol means current row. Why would you need to do that? Well, sometimes your project gets really complicated. There are many turns. Picture doing Irish crochet, a large doily in Irish crochet. At some point you lose track of which row you're working in. And these labels here, just on the left, are just for your orientation, but they're not. They won't be valid if you start multiplying rows by, let's say, you repeat a row 5 times. These labels will not give you the correct row position. So then, putting a % will immediately tell the project, okay, it's the current row I'm working in, 0 stitch. Okay, so that's how you deal with that. Similarly, you might decide, well, I want to work in the previous row, but I don't know its row number. So how do you do that? Well, in this case, we know the previous row's row number, it's 0. But if you want to specify the previous row for any location in your project, you can just write -1. -1 corresponds to the previous row, -2 to 2 rows back, -3 to 3 rows back. Let's just try it out. So I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna do 9 single crochets, turn, and I'm gonna copy this a few times here. Okay, so we have the swatch. Now here it is. I'm gonna skip 1. I'm gonna chain 5, let's say, and then I want to slip stitch in the previous row in the 3rd stitch, counting from 0. So here it is. Here, when you say the previous row, it's the coordinate always counts in the direction in which you roll the line. Okay, so it doesn't. These stitch coordinates do not care about whether there was a turn or not at the end of the previous round. So again, stitch number 3. This corresponds to the following. This is stitch number 0. So stitch number 3 would correspond to the 2nd of these chains. Well, in the direction in which they were crocheted. So let's see. This is the chain. This is this chain right here. This is the first of those 9 single crochets, and this is the second one of those single crochets. So 0, 1, 2, 3. I think I said second single crochet. I meant to say the 3rd single crochet, and that's exactly where these chains attached. Now, if you want to attach to the stitch right here, you might want to write -2 here, and there it is. It's attached exactly there, and so on. Okay, so this is how you specify direct attachment. Now, sometimes or often in crocheting project, you're told to attach in the next, let's say, double crochet. Well, let's introduce a line here which involves a bunch of single crochets, some double crochets. Let's say there are 2 single crochets, a double crochet, 2 single crochets, a double crochet. How many do we have here? There are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I want to do the slip stitch. Well, first of all, let's show this this project up to here. I'm going to comment out this line by putting the hashtag symbol in front. So here they are. You see the double crochet. This is a double crochet. This is a double crochet. We end with a double crochet right here. Now, let's say I want to do a slip stitch in the first double crochet. Well, let's start with chain 1. Actually, no, we don't have to do that. Slip stitch. Here it is. I want to do a double crochet in the previous round in the 0th double crochet. So here, when you're specifying the coordinates this way, actually the direction is in the direction you would normally be crocheting. Okay, so counting, because we turned the project, the 0th double crochet stitch of the previous row corresponds to this guy right here, because again we turned the project, it's right here. If you specify how about the first double crochet counting from 0, that would be this one, so that would be this one right here. Okay, let me run the project, run the code, there it is, it attaches there. If I want the next one, I can specify this one right here, and there it is. So again, if a code says stitch into the third double crochet of the previous row, this is how you can specify that. And of course, here you can specify any label you want. You might want to say, I want to crochet in the third single crochet of the previous row. So here it is. This is one double crochet, two double crochet right here, and this is the third, sorry, single crochet. This is the first single crochet, this is the second single crochet, this is the third single crochet of the previous row, counting from 1. So counting from 0, that corresponds to number 2. There it is. Okay. You can also attach stitches with the relative positions. What does that mean? Well, you can't use that. You can't use that specification if you don't have any attached stitches on this row. So I need to attach a stitch. So if okay, so let's skip one, chain one, single crochet, and then we have 5 chains. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I want to attach, let's say, this series of 5 single crochets with a slip stitch. I want to attach them. Sorry, this series of 5 chains. I want to attach them with a slip stitch to the single crochet right, to the base of the single crochet right here. So how do I specify that? Well, this single crochet implicitly is attached to a stitch of the previous row. That stitch, there is a shorthand to which you can refer to. You can just put an @ symbol. So I'm going to be attaching to the previous attachment point. That's how you read this. And there it is, the 5 chains. Attached with a slip stitch right here to the base of the single crochet. Now if it's clearer, I can do the following. I can just hide the stitches and show them one by one. So we have the single crochet here after the first chain. So we're talking about this chain here, this single crochet here. Then we do 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, so these are these 5 chains, and then a single crochet in the attachment of the single crochet of the last stitch that we did in the last attachment. There it is. Now if you want to attach in the next attachment, you can do this. In the next stitch, then you can do this. And when I say in the next stitch, I mean in the direction in which you're crocheting. Because we have a turn, we're going backwards relative to the direction in which the previous row was crocheted. You can add two of these, there you go, and so on. Now what if you want to attach to the next double crochet? Well, I can do the following. Attach to the last attachment point, but the first double crochet after the last attachment point. So there it is. It automatically attached to the next attachment point right here. What if you want to do that in 2 double crochets later? Well, this is what you do. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not exactly right, because here we're not attaching to a double crochet. So when I say use the attachment point +1, it sort of defaults to, well, I'm gonna just find the next attachment, a double crochet attachment. All of that is described in the manual if you want to read the details. If I write DC +2, that will bring me to here, and so on to the next double crochet point. Okay, so again, this is how you do with relative positions. Of course, you can also subtract. I can do, okay, please attach to the previous, to the attachment point of the single crochet, but subtract 1 from that. Now that will probably lead to an error because there is no attachment point before the single crochet. Let's try it. That did not lead to an error. Oh, right. The previous attachment point is wherever this chain started, and it's right here. Okay, so if we had 2 single crochets, then it will attach to the first of those, to the attachment of the first of those single crochets. It's right there. Okay. Next step in the manual, attaching to a label. So if you want to attach to a stitch that is somewhere buried in the rows before, you might want to, instead of specifying coordinates, which may be a little bit hard to find unless you actually hover with the mouse and figure out which stitch it is, it may help with clarity if you say, okay, I'm going to label this stitch here with the label A. The label is specified after a dot. So far we have 7 of these single crochets, so I need 2 more. So I'm going to slip stitch at label A. Think of this label as a stitch marker. And there it is. These 5 chains here after the first 2 single crochets attached to the stitch right here. And let's see, that is indeed the single crochet that was labeled with the label A. So that's how you do a simple attachment to a simple label like this. You can also label groups of stitches. Oh, by the way, labels can also carry indices. You can label this as A0. Okay, nothing will change. It's just another name for the label. It can be anything, the label name. Just a word of warning. You can't use sorry, give me 1 second. No, never mind. You can. Sometimes I forget the specifications of the language. So anyway, now what if you want to label a group of stitches? Well, let's say we do the following. I want to skip 5 or skip 3, 2 single crochets. Let's see what we get. Okay, I'm going to do 2 more single crochets, so we're looking at 4 single crochets, and I'm going to turn the project, chain 1, skip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do 5 single crochets, and what I don't want to do next is I want to attach my next stitches into this chain right here. Okay, so what I can do is I can label my chain, and I can attach, let's say, 5 single crochets in that chain. So as you can see, those 5 single crochets were attached in this chain. Now, what if I wanted to do 6 of those single crochets? Well, that can only happen if you're single crocheting in the chain space. The code automatically takes care of that. It introduces these tiny threads that hopefully you can see right here. They help you trace where this stitch was attached to. It's attached in between this and that chain, meaning it's attached to the chain space. So it automatically interpolates, creates intermediate nodes where these extra 6 crochets can be attached. Let's do 20 of them. And now there are a ton of them attached to the chain, and you can do as many. Now, for cosmetic purposes, you might not like the look of this because the chain space extends to here as well and on this side as well. So what you can do in order to fix again, this is just a cosmetic thing, you can modify this label by adding up the symbol plus after that. That will automatically include the edges here. So let's see how that's different. There it is. Now my 20 single crochets attach all the way to the edges. Now you might not like this either because right here I'm attaching one of the single crochets to actually a single crochet of the previous row instead of to the chain space. So what you can do is you can specify that to the label here, you can modify it and say that yes, you want to include this section of the chain and that section of the chain over there, but I want to skip the edges, this particular single crochet. To do that, you just put an exclamation mark. And there you are. You no longer attach to the single crochet. And again, this is all cosmetic. You can just say chain space, and done. And whoever is reading it, or you can even specify it like that, will hopefully figure out what you're talking about. Or you can put a comment here to explain what you're talking about in detail. Okay, so what are the next things you can do? Well, you might want to actually skip only one of these edges. In that case, actually, let me reduce the number of single crochets here because it's a little bit overwhelming. I'm going to do 10 actually double crochets so that I can see them better. Now it looks more like a fan. And in fact, I'm going to do it in 2D so that I can see it better here. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to skip just this end stitch here. Okay, so I'm going to skip the end stitch. Well, it's actually in the same direction in which you're crocheting, so the end stitch. You can, let me backtrack a little bit. After an exclamation mark, you can add a 0 or a 1. With an exclamation mark, you're skipping crocheting into the two edges of this labeled group, which, because of the plus, includes the single crochet, one single crochet from here and one single crochet from there. If you just want to skip the first of those stitches in the direction which you're crocheting, you type in 0. In the direction in which these stitches were crocheted. So there it is. We skipped the first one. If you want to, but we didn't skip the last one. If you want to skip the last one, you type 1. So here it is. We skipped the last one, but not the first one. Similarly, you can just add only the last single crochet here, but not the first one here. Okay? And you see, because of the exclamation mark, I actually didn't crochet in the chain. You may want to crochet in the chain, so you might want to say, okay, exclamation mark 1. So skip only the last one. So there it is. So we started here, went over there to here, and we included with the +1, we included the single crochet, but with the exclamation 1, we didn't crochet in it. We just interpolated in the space here. So again, you can play with these modifiers. You can read the manual about them. This is the part about the exclamation mark, skipping border stitches of a group. This is the part about the plus sign, adding stitches to a group, and how you combine it with an exclamation mark. And there are a bunch of examples here that you can follow as well. Okay. The next modifier you may be interested in is the tilde sign. The tilde sign comes after you've specified an attachment point. So imagine you wanted to crochet these guys here, these 20 chain, these 10 double crochets in this chain space, but you wanted to attach them in reverse. So you will do this. And oops, this is in 2D, so let's do 3D because it will be easier to see. So as you can see, let me actually show them one by one. This is the starting point, single crochet, and then the next double crochet went into the end of the chain space and started working backwards. Okay, so now the direction, which one is forwards, which one is backwards, that's described in the manual in a section called Direction of Sequential Stitch Attachment. I highly recommend you read it. CrochetPARADE is trying to figure out which way you're crocheting. It's trying to do its best at figuring out which way you're crocheting by counting the number of turns between the row where you started and the row where in which you're attaching and the row where you're working the stitches right now. Now that may sometimes not work properly as in you might want to reverse things. So reverse stitch placement. So that's why you need to use these symbols here with tilde and so on. Okay, well, what if you want to do the following? What if you want to do a single double crochet into this chain space, and you're going to see why I'm putting these brackets here, but you want to do a single double crochet in the third stitch. Or actually, let's help us a little bit better, in the first stitch, counting from 0. Well, that's, whoops, I forgot the initial parentheses. So here it is. again, you can add a remember how you can specify labels and then put modifiers in square brackets? So maybe this is the zeroth chain space, maybe later on you have the first chain space, maybe later on you have the second chain space, and so on. If you have a second set of brackets, in that second set of square brackets you specify which stitch you want to work this, in this case double crocheting. So it always is in the second set of brackets. Okay, so if you're not going to be labeling different chain spaces with different numbers, you need a first set of brackets. That's just how it is. You can't go around that. So again, I want to work in the 5 chains in that labeled group. I want to work in the first stitch counting from 0. So there it is. Let's see if that makes sense. I'm going to zoom in. So again, this is the first stitch in the direction in which you're crocheting. So you're crocheting in backwards because of the turn here. So this is chain 0. This is a single crochet. Let me remind you, this is the first chain 1 in that labeled group of 5 chains. So that's where the double crochet went. If you want to move it to the next one, you would write 2. And there it is. This is chain 0, chain 1, chain 2, and so on. So that's how you attach to a particular stitch in a labeled group. Now you can do labels with counters. So for example, let's say we have this 5 chains here, which we've labeled with A, and I'm going to label them, I don't know, you can say chain space 0. And then you can do a single crochet, and I want another, after skipping 3, let's say, and then I want another 5 chains and 3 skips. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I do want to do, in this case, 2 skips and a single crochet, so that I can close the loop. There it is. Except that didn't work. Oh, there you go. Okay, so what if you wanted to do that, but you don't. Oh, right now both of these 5 chains are labeled with the same chain space. So if you actually want to attach here, you're probably going to get an error, because the code won't be, unless you have exactly 10 stitches which are attached to this label, then you know which stitch goes where. The first stitch would go in the first chain, and the second stitch in the second chain, and so on. If you're trying to attach 20 stitches, then the code will complain because it wouldn't know how to interpolate across the single crochet lying in between. So here it is. This is a new label, chain space 1. So I'm going to turn, I'm going to skip, I'm going to chain, and then what I want to do is I'm going to do 3 double crochets at chain space 1. I'm going to start with this one right here because of the turn, and then I'm going to do 3 double crochets at chain space 0. There they are. Now you can do exactly the same with a counter variable, because as you can see, and by the way, I want to do here 2 skips. I want to do it slightly smaller number of skips. There you go. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. As you can see, this part of the stitch, 5 chains and then 2 skips, and then 5 chains and then 2 skips together with a single crochet, is repeated twice. So what you can do is you can do the following. I can put this in parentheses, and I can get rid of this part, including one of the single crochets, and I can multiply by 2. Now if I do that, I won't have defined label 1. So instead you can put a variable here. You can set it at 0 by writing the following piece of code, and then you want to increase every time you iterate this part of the stitch instructions. So in the second round you want this k to increase by 1. So in the first iteration, in the first copy of this sequence in square brackets, k is 0, and in the next one it will be 1. So this should produce the same result, and indeed it does. Now the + notation, this is standard coding notation. So guys, if you're not aware, if you are not aware of that, you should read the Wikipedia article on increment and decrement operators. It's right here. It's linked. So it explains how this works. And if not, just try to read the manual. It will explain to you how, again, to some degree, how these increases and decreases in counters work. Okay. So labels with counters, we did that. Let's see, did we miss something? Okay, so I skipped this part. Multiple stitch sets attaching to a labeled group. So let's say we go back a little bit here. I'm doing Control Z. Control Z does undoing. Okay, so then 3 single crochets, turn, and then we're going to do chain, skip, single crochet. So now let's do 6 double crochets at A, and I put in these square brackets here for reasons you're going to see in a minute. They're not necessary at this point. I mean, I can go with them or without them, you're going to get the same exact answers. So again, 6 double crochets in the chain space. Now, what if instead of 6 double crochets, you wanted to do 3 double crochets and 3 triple crochets? Well, this is how you can specify it if you want. Okay, but now what if you want the trebles to come before the double crochets? This is how you can specify the order in which they're crocheted. After a semicolon in square brackets, you put an integer here and an integer there, because this one is smaller than this one, then the trebles are going to come first. Let's see. So I'm going to do it one stitch at a time. Here is the single crochet, then the next 3 trebles are attached to the second half of the 5 chain space. And then the next 3 double crochets are attached to the first half. I'm sorry, what I said is not right. So these double crochets here are attached to the second part of the chain space, and then the 3 trebles are attached to the first part of the chain space. There they are. And again, the order in which they're crocheted is in the same as the original direction, the default direction in which one crochets. Now, if you want to reverse the direction in which the double crochets are stitched into the second half, you can always put a tilde there, and here it is. You can see the double crochets go in reverse here. And if you don't, then let me do them one at a time. So again, this is double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, but as you can see, they go against the original direction in which we were stitching this row. And then the trebles are in the original direction, 1, 2, 3. So there you go. That's how you can manipulate different parts of different stitch sets attached to a label group. Okay, and the last part that I need to tell you about is how you can attach to a post of a stitch. I have a demonstration here. That's the simple flower with post stitches. It looks better if I press C so that the different stitches are colored, so you can see better what's going on. So let me go back a little bit. This here is a double crochet which was labeled with a double crochet AK++. Okay, and after the label there was a modifier, the caret symbol. The caret symbol means this label refers to the post of the double crochet. The exclamation marks means we'll be working, whatever stitches will work in this post, they won't touch the 2 end points of the post. That's something we covered a few minutes ago. So let's see how that works. So as you can see here, these double crochets that I'm working at label A8 are attached in the post. And there is a tilde there to tell you that they go in the opposite direction, meaning not from bottom to top of the post, but from top to bottom. and that direction again changes depending on whether you have turns or not. So in order to understand it better, make sure you read the direction of sequential stitch attachment part of the manual. Then I'm gonna go in the next double crochet and attach a few posts, in the post of this double crochet here, the blue one, I'm gonna attach a few more of these stitches. So, oops, that's how you can attach in a post. Now, if a stitch has multiple posts, then you can specify which posts you're talking about by writing an integer after the caret symbol. And again, all of that is in the manual, so you can write something like this. Okay, so with that, I believe we covered all ground, the basics. Let me just double check. Oh, multiple attachment heads, that's something we didn't do. And the attachment to an empty stitch. Okay. So let's start with 10 chains, and then turn, and then skip, chain, 5 single crochets. Okay, so guys, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn, reset the location of the @ symbol, and I'm gonna say, well, I want the next stitch to be attached to the first row. Well, let me put some chains first. 3 chains. The attachment. So right now the @ symbol carries the attachment of the last single crochet here of these 5 single crochet stitches, which means the @ symbol refers to this point right here, to this stitch right here, to this chain. You can reset the value of the @ symbol by writing, without specifying a stitch, just writing @1, let's say 0. That won't change what we have so far, but it will change where the next stitch will attach. So the next stitch will attach at the next attachment point after the attachment point that we wrote down here. So that means it will attach to stitch 1, 1. Well, this is row 1. Stitch 1 will be the first single crochet here out of these 5, because the chain is the 0th. So let's try that, and here it is. It attaches the single crochet, attaches to the stitch right here, because the @ symbol without a preceding stitch reset the location of the attachment to the beginning. Now, what if you want to do that for a single stitch? You want to attach the single crochet at that location, but then the next, let's say double crochet, you want it to go back to right after this chain. Well, you can then modify the head. You can have multiple heads. Think of crocheting in different locations and keeping track of which location you're crocheting. So by putting an integer after the @ symbol, you're specifying a different attachment head. This is this part right here. So we just covered the attachment of an empty stitch without the 1, and now we're talking about different attachment heads. So I can say, okay, so this single crochet needs to attach to the location of attachment head 1 and the next stitch, but then this DC by default attaches to the next stitch carried by the attachment symbol @, which is at 0 by default. Again, that's attachment head 0 by default. Okay, so where is DC going? This DC going, DC double crochet stitch goes in the next attachment point carried by the attachment head 0. Well, the last time attachment head 0 was used by default was in the last single crochet here. So this DC is going to attach right after the last of these single crochet stitches. Let's see if that makes sense. Here it is. So again, this is the single crochet which attached to the first single crochet stitch because we used attachment head 1. We did then 2 chains, 1, 2 chains, and then we did a double crochet, and then we used the default attachment head. And the default attachment head was here previously. It was at the location of the attachment of the last single crochet, and we just incremented by 1 right here. So that's how you can jump back and forth between locations of crocheting in a project. where is this useful? It's really useful when you're doing picot stitches, for example. Just one of many examples I can think of. So let's see, we do 3 single crochets, and then we do slip stitch. We do 3 chains and a slip stitch in the current row 4 stitches back relative to the previous stitch before the slip stitch. So that means we're going to skip the 3 chains and we're going to do the slip stitch in the single crochet. There it is. So we did a picot. Now if I do a single crochet next, I'm going to single crochet in the location which is the next location of attachment head 0. So attachment head 0 right now corresponds to attachment point %-4, which corresponds to this single stitch right here. So if I do the next single crochet, it will go into the next location right here, just the next logical location. And here it is. Now, when you're doing picot, you definitely don't want to do that. You just want to do the single crochet right after these 3 single crochets here in the foundation row. So you don't want to modify the location of attachment head 0. So one way to do that is you can use attachment head 1 here. And then there you go. Attachment head 1 is modified, but that doesn't change the location of attachment head 0. So attachment head 0 was right here before the picot, and then this single crochet just utilized by default the next location. So yeah, this is how you can use different attachment heads. Okay, again, make sure you read the direction of sequential stitch attachment. It will help you understand by default which way you're crocheting, or what the code assumes about which way you're crocheting. We talked about in previous videos about different types of definitions for crochets. In closing, I want to highlight this section here, limitations, pitfalls, and workarounds. Make sure you read it. It will help you understand what you can and what you can't do with the code, and possibly future directions of development of the code. And the last thing we haven't really talked about is how you specify colors. You can use any of the supported colors here in the Wikipedia page for the X11 color names, or you can specify your colors, so any of these names are fair game, or you can specify colors using RGB coordinates, or using hex colors for that matter. Similarly, you can specify the background, and you can do comments with backslashes, you can do comments with hashtags, and you can modify what graph is fed by putting a dot directive. For that, you need to read the Graphviz manual in order to understand it better. But one thing you can do is you can add hidden nodes if you want to, or you can create new connections which are unrelated to crocheting. Let's say you were sewing, so you can connect stitch 154 to stitch 144 with color gray, length 9, for example. Alright, so with that, I'm gonna end. Happy crocheting, everybody, and I hope you enjoy this platform. Take care.